What's up, everybody? Welcome to Boosted Motorsports. Today's video, we are going to be working on the Dodge Viper, and we are continuing to get this thing ready to be supercharged. So if you guys haven't seen the last few videos, we've got a row supercharger kit that's going to be going on this with the Kenny Bell head unit. We pinned the crank already so that our harmonic balancer and our crank pulley is going to be fixed with our crankshaft to turn that supercharger. And we also installed the wideband O2 sensor and gauge pod, which fought us, but it is now on the dash there. So what I started to work on before I got into this video was figuring out my layout. You guys can go ahead and buy meth kits for these cars that fit in different positions and whatnot. This is the jug that comes with the row kit, and this goes in the trunk. So if you want, you guys can go that route, and that is a pretty sizable tank. What I'm going to try to do, and it's going to obviously run out sooner, but I do want to try it, is I want to convert my original washer fluid tank or reservoir into my meth tank. And then I've just been fiddling around prior to this video to figuring out where I was going to mount the pump, and I found a beautiful spot for this pump. So in the front, right in front of your driver's side wheel well, this whole section is pretty much vacant. So I found even two holes that line up with the bracketry on one of these methanol injection pumps, and the rubber mount that is, and two of the holes. So I really only have to drill two more holes in this plastic piece, and these are just factory holes for whatever purpose. But you can see right there, that is where my methanol injection pump is sitting, and I just have to put a couple more screws in it. I'm gonna play with the position a little bit. I may rotate it to lay flat, but either way, we got a ton of room in here. And the other thing I'm thinking is, if this tank doesn't end up sufficing, like if we end up going through methanol a lot faster than we want to, I'm fine with if I go on a drive and I have to fill it up at the end of the day or in the middle of the drive or whatever. Like if it lasts me one tank of gas, I'd be cool with that and having to top it up. But if we're going through it way faster than that, then what I'll do is, there's so much room in here, you guys. I could fit a whole tank in here. So I could definitely make something up and fit the whole tank and the pump in this front compartment, which is what I would like. And then if you ever have to fill it, you could fill it through this rubber grommet access port that goes right there anyways, or put a neck up the top. Either way, I think that would be a cool little solution for us. So let me mess with this a little bit. Like you can see, it's hanging there. I just threw two screws through these two holes just to hold it. I haven't drilled anything yet, and I'm just finalizing my idea and my plan, and then we'll get that all together. We're also going to be using an AEM controller for the methanol kit, so I'll share that with you guys just here in a second, but let me mess with this and I'll show you everything we got. So after messing around with this a little bit more, I decided to flip it upside down, which I also researched, and apparently according to companies such as Devil's Own, which is a pretty large methanol injection supplier, they said it's actually better to put it upside down like that. So it's not fully bolted up, but I was trying to deal with those fittings, because at the top there, I don't know if you can see, but it kind of tapers in, and the one fitting was kind of touching over there if I'm going to use these existing bolt holes. So if I flip it, it actually is going to be better, because if you look at how low we're going to be compared to our reservoir here, it's actually going to be even lower, right? We're going to be down here in the bottom, and that's where the bottom of our feed's going to be. So we're going to be dropping, I don't know, almost a foot. So it's going to be pretty good for us. I'm going to pull that out of there. I'm going to mark it and trace on this side, drill my other two holes, then we can put it back in and kind of get it situated. I also have to tap this, but let's do one thing at a time. And just so you guys know, I can get that methanol pump out through here, so it fits perfectly through this fog light opening. Of course, being an ACR, I don't have fog lights, it just comes straight out. And there she is, just like that. So I'm going to use the bracket as my template and drill my two holes. So it's going to be sitting essentially like that, only on the other side of this piece of plastic here. So let's go ahead and get those two holes drilled, and we can throw it back in here. All right, so I just drilled my two holes with that super ugly ghetto right angle thing. I do have a right angle air drill, but this is just easier, and I had it sitting there. So my holes are drilled. I just test fitted my bolts through, as you can see. So I'm gonna pop that thing off. And one thing is, unless you got really skinny arms or you're some sort of contortionist, I'm gonna have to put the inner fitting, my push to connect fitting, I'm gonna have to connect it first, because I can't seem to get my arm all the way to that bottom corner one. I mean, if I have to pop the screws out, I can get to the bolts and everything, so we'll be fine there. But to get to this lower bottom fitting over here, I'm gonna have to connect it first. So if you guys can see there, my plan of attack is up through here. That's where the upper, pretty much the upper rad hose is. I'm gonna send my feed line out there, and I guess I can send both of them out. So both my lines are gonna go out through there, so I don't drill any more holes. And one's gonna go back to the tank. The other one's gonna go up, pretty much come out through here, and then it's gonna go to my 2 inlet tubes right here. So it's gonna be a nice setup, you guys. Not gonna have to travel a very far distance to get the job done here. So that's pretty much it. Let's keep moving. Let's put this pump on the inside and get our lines going. Okay, so you haven't missed much just yet. I just strung this here. This is going around. I kept it away from the exhaust as much as possible. Runs right here to, I guess, the outside of my hood hinge, and then just dips below the headlight. And just like that, our hose is right here. So it's pretty simple. It's got a nice straight path, and then it's gonna go right into our pump once we get the pump in there. So let me get the pump in there, and we'll get that one connection before we shove it back in that corner and get our bolts in. All right, so we got the 4 bolts in there, and our pump is mounted. She's buried in there, but she's in there, nice, secure. Our one line is connected. So pretty much the next thing is, I guess it comes a time where we should probably tap the bottom of this for our line here, or we can start running our wires for our controller. So here's the controller, here's the wiring harness. I could bore you guys with telling you guys what each and every color does, but it has very good instructions, tells you what every color wire does and where it needs to go. A couple small things, I guess. I'm gonna end up probably shortening up a lot of this stuff, and where I'm gonna mount this is by, in the driver's side, like kick plate down there by the feet there. It's pretty much the only spot that I can think of to put this. I don't really want to mount it on the dash and stuff like that, and I don't really need to mount it on the dash. Once you set the settings, you're pretty much good to go. This thing isn't waterproof, so it's not like I can mount it out here. It has to go inside. And then this status light, it's gonna pretty much be the same as the one that we have up on the dash. So if you guys didn't see, we installed a LED up on the steering column that we're gonna connect to this as well. So let's get wiring, and there's really not a whole lot I can show you guys down here. Like, it is so tiny, and I think I was telling you guys and complaining about it last time. I can barely fit in here, and I'm not a very big guy, but it's so tiny in there to sit there and be upside down trying to do wiring under there. It's not fun whatsoever. I had to do it for the gauge right there, and that's our little meth light LED right there, but it was not fun. Not looking forward to being under there wiring this, but it is what it is. So let's get to it. Okay, so I spent a few minutes there. This is obviously wire that I just cut out. These are all the wires that are going to stay in the car, and I don't need that length on them because these things are like, whatever you want to call that, I don't know, 12 feet long or something. So I left the ones that are coming out of the car that have to go under the hood and whatnot, into the pump and to our tank and all that stuff. I left them a mile long. We'll trim them as necessary, but I kept all the ones that are going to be underneath the dash, you know, about 2 feet long or whatever, so I can trim those as necessary, but I just didn't want to be getting under there with a bunch of spaghetti. So I taped these through. So we're going to go in, feed this back through our firewall, pull it out of here, and then that way I have all these wires out here. We can start running them to the various spots. So 2 of them have to go to the pump, so we have a positive and a negative at the pump, and I believe it is orange and pink. Those are the colors they chose. The red has to go directly to a battery source, so we're going to go to here. The blue is what's going to go to our map sensor. That's where it's going to get its reference for when it knows, you know, we're making boost and when to spray. And then the white and the brown, these 2 wires are going to go to a level switch, which I haven't installed here, but it's going to essentially put a switch on here, so it's not going to try and pump if if there's something going on, and it's gonna flash our LED and all that good stuff. So let's do it. There we go. We got her through. Same deal, guys. I just went ahead and trimmed everything up. So I've got my red power lead here, trimmed it because it's gonna go to there. I've got my brown wire, which is going to go to the reservoir for our fluid level sensor, which is gonna show up tomorrow, but I'll have it in today's video. And then the white, which is gonna be the other connection to that fluid level sensor. And then this blue one, which goes over to that map sensor you see right there, which is gonna be actually moved once you put a supercharger on. And then orange and pink are gonna go to the front. So what you see in my hand here is I got some wire loom. I can link this down below as well, and I'll link everything that I'm using down below. So I'm gonna run those 2 wires all the way to the front. I'll get those 2 out of the way, and then we'll start working on the closer stuff. We'll work our way from the front to the back and get this done. So here we go. We got this one all in the loom, and I'm gonna feed it down just behind the headlight, like I mentioned earlier, and it's gonna pop out here. And then I'm gonna pull it out here. We'll put our 2 ends on it once I kind of get an idea of the length, and that pump will have wiring. So here we are with our wires. I just crimped on these 2 connections. We got a male and a female, and that corresponds to over there. So orange is ground, pink is power. We're gonna connect them to those little guys there, and this part is done. Then we can go to those ones. All right. So it's been a little bit of time. I got our positive, which you can't even see, which is the way I wanted it. It's hooked up to our positive terminal. I still have these 2 wires here because, like I said, that switch is coming tomorrow for our fluid level, and I haven't run the rest of the lines yet because I want to get my fluid level sensor in there first before I end up tapping that bottle and running the 2 nozzles. But moving over to here, I got all the wiring done, which I will show you. It's hard to see, but it is up here. So there's the controller right there. All the wiring's tucked away nicely. I've got my ground here, and it's running off the fuse tap. That's also running off my gauge because it's super low current. That is literally just a switch to trigger the controller because it's getting its positive power source from the terminal over there. So it's literally just a trip. So it's not drawing any current. Only thing is right now, I was noticing, hopefully the camera can pick it up, is when you turn it on to arm it, you'll see the LED functions now. So the blue LED. But I don't know if you guys will hear it, but the pump is buzzing, and I just looked up the instructions and it does say something about this. Can you guys hear that? So I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but there's a buzzing coming out of there, and this instructions specifically say about that. At least the online ones do. Maybe these ones don't because it's more just a wiring, but it does say in the programming that if it is buzzing, to power down the unit, and it says to hold that test button until the unit powers up, and then let go of the test button, and it will turn off. What it's doing is it's doing a diagnostic right now while it's not running, and it's buzzing the pump is what it said. So it says you can turn that feature off. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm gonna have to try and get in here like a contortionist. So let's see how this goes. So I got my hand on the button. I'm gonna hold it, turn it on, and then let go of the button, and there. Now it's working without buzzing because there's no more buzzing. If we go over here. So I think I'm gonna run it that way. I was having a mini heart attack thinking maybe this pump that isn't an AEM was gonna be an issue for us, but now it's not buzzing, which is good. And that blue light's not illuminating, which it was constantly right there. So right now, if I hit the test button, don't mind the dinging, it's kind of just what we have to deal with. But the pump, if I can stick my hand up in here. So this LED mimics whatever the controller LED is doing. So if there's a fault, it'll flash certain codes and stuff like that on this little LED. So this LED does everything we need once we get it dialed in. But if I hold test, you'll see it come on blue. And that's it, spraying meth once we get it all hooked up with the pump. So We got a lot of work done today, boys, and tomorrow I'm gonna fast forward this clip to tomorrow when I get that fluid level indicator, and we'll get that on, get the nozzles on, and we should be able to wrap this up. Okay, it's the next day, and our sensor did show up from Amazon, so I'll link this in the description below. Hopefully it works. But the idea is to take out our factory little pump there and throw in this fluid level sensor. I was trying to find the most shallow one that I could, and I still got to figure out the pigtail for it. But let's take this bottle off, pull that original pump out of there, and see if this guy fits. So I ordered a new gasket because I don't anticipate this to be the exact size, but we shall see. It's got a little more depth to it for sure, and this size is definitely bigger, so I might have to drill this hole out larger, but let's see. Unless we go somewhere like over here where there's more depth, we could definitely do that, but then we gotta try to plug this hole. You can see the depths where it wants to go. It is gonna be real close. It might work, but it is gonna be extremely close to hitting and maybe tilting a little bit, so I don't want it to leak. I'm waiting for the gasket to arrive because we will have to open up this hole bigger. But my thing that I'm going to figure out right now is if we were to leave this in place to plug this hole, will this leak? Yeah, so it's automatically going to leak out of there, you guys. Look. Okay guys, so we finally got the extra gasket that I was missing for this meth kit. So we're gonna go ahead and I have to, you can see the size difference in the two gaskets. So I'm gonna have to try to move this hole up and obviously enlarge it. So I'm gonna try and make its way up instead of just centering that. So I'm probably gonna use my little Dremel and make this hole larger. And like I said, try to go upwards so that I can get a bit more clearance since this bottle is tapered. So let me mess with that and we'll see what we got. Okay guys, so I was going to record this for you guys, but I was a little bit nervous since this bottle is discontinued from Mopar and I really didn't want to botch it. So I was a little bit nervous doing it, but it took me like 5 minutes and it fits beautifully. So as you can see there, I've got my new gasket, got the new sensor in there, and it just clears just barely. It's kind of resting on the plastic, but it'll do. She's fully seated. So all I did was take this cheap little Dremel with this little sandpaper and I kind of just ovaled out the top half, and I'll pop this back out of here because I'm going to clean the bottle now that it's good and just clean up any little spots I may have missed. But I literally just arced out the top and kind of made it a little bit wider and kind of made a nicer, bigger circle, but I didn't take away any material from the bottom, only from the top to make my larger circle. And as you can see, we've got our new sensor in there, so that's going to seal that plug. Like you saw, it was leaking out of here, so we couldn't have left that in there. It's going to seal that hole, and then I can also drill my hole and tap the bottom of this jug for our methanol. All right, so that's to about as close to a perfect circle as I can get, not being an artist. And I just put some water in here. I want to make sure that this, when it sits on the car, is the actual bottom lowest part of the actual reservoir. I just want to make sure it's not tipping a weird way or something. So let's see. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see the water in there, but looks like it does sit pretty level. So we should be good putting it in the bottom right here. So let's go ahead and we'll tap our feed line for the pump. So I've got my drill bit here. I'm gonna go a little on the tight side. I'm gonna go with a 5/16, and then I have my 1/8 NPT tap. We've got zip ties coming into the party, and I've got my tap. So I'll show you guys also the nozzle we're gonna put on this. Here's the fitting we're gonna run. It has obviously 1/8 NPT on the one side and a push to connect fitting on this side, and also has a swivel built in. Trust me, it's tight right now, but that's what we're gonna put on the bottom of our tank. So as you can see there, it's probably more than 1/8 of an inch thick, so she's pretty good. Now we'll go ahead and we'll run our tap in here. So that is about it. I'm gonna go ahead and clean the bottle out so that it's all set to go. So I'm gonna clean out all the debris, all the nonsense, and then we'll go ahead, screw this in, and put our fitting back in with our sensor. Okay, so we've got a nice clean bottle. I just degreased it and everything. She's ready to go, no bits, no chunks. And let's go ahead and install our parts. So I'm just gonna thread this in here. It does have some Teflon tape on there, just sealing, not Teflon tape, but obviously some sort of Teflon sealing stuff. I might add just a tiny bit, but I don't even know if I need to, honestly, because it's going to be a pretty tight fit. So that's going to go there, and you guys already know the sensor with the grommets going to go in here. So let me throw that 2 things in. Just threaded that in, and like I mentioned, it's on a swivel. So we're going to point it that direction because we're going to go that way. Let me put the sensor in. There she is. That's it, you guys. So we've got her set up. I'm probably going to order the clip. For some reason I didn't have the clip, but these 2 female spade plugs, they fit on there beautifully. So I might just run it like that for now. But I might get the official connector here shortly. I just having trouble figuring out which one it was. But as you can see there, everything's flush, everything's good. And that's what it looks like inside, if you guys can see down the barrel there. So there's our 2 things right there. We're good to go. So next up, we'll take the bottle, and I've got my 2 pins there. Like I said, I might try to find the harness, or I am gonna try to find the harness, but for now we can just clip it on with 2 spades on those 2 pins. And then see how there's a heat shield there? There's a reason there's a heat shield there. It's because the exhaust is literally right there. So I'm gonna put this heat sleeve over top of this plastic tubing as well, and we're gonna install our tank right now. So our 2 clips are there. And now I'm gonna go ahead and install our bolts. So now all that's left to do is I'm gonna cut this to length. So I'll cut it right about there, and I'm just gonna push that in. And there you have it, you guys. So we've got our push to connect fitting is connected. I just gotta tighten the bottle, but that's all in. Only next thing is we gotta put our 2 fittings in here, our nozzles. So I'm gonna run the 1 line up to here. I'm gonna put a Y in it, and then it's gonna separate so that it goes to our 2 nozzles, 1 in each tubing. So I'm gonna run it up to here. I'm gonna run all my piping. I'll put the nozzles in, and then we'll activate the system just to clean out any of the junk that might be in the lines, because you don't want your nozzles to get clogged either. One thing I wanna check real quick is, since there's absolutely no fluid in there, that sensor, those 2 pegs essentially is gonna close the circuit. So this system with the AEM, it will flash a single flash if it's low on fluid, as you can see. So technically speaking, and I'm not gonna run water through it just like this, but we're gonna end up pumping this out in a second. If I put it over top of that sensor, everything's working as it should. So just like that, so it's submerged. We should no longer have a flashing light. Like that. So the system's ready to go. There's no issues. So that's how it's going to work, is once it gets low on fluid, it'll give us that single flash instead. So everything's working as should, you guys. I was just figuring out the nozzle situation that's included. It looks like I'm missing a piece since it was a used methanol kit, row kit. There's some sort of compression fitting that goes into here. It kind of looks like, if you ever seen some of those fittings underneath your kitchen sink or something like that in your household, I think there's a little thing that has to slip, little sleeve that goes over top of the hose so that you can tighten this down, because putting this in here just like that and that over top, it just falls right out. So I'm missing something there, so I might have to go to the hardware store, but I started messing around with something, because there's a button on this, on the actual controller, the AEM controller, you can push it to test it. And since the line's all hooked up, I just wanted to see if it would come out of here. So I hooked up a line from the output of the pump to here, where we were going to run over to our intake tubes. And I wanted to just see if, you know, it was going to, obviously it should have just come squirting out of here for 2 seconds, but it's not doing it. The pump's running, but I think that pump might be smoked. So watch, if I hit the button, you'll hear the noise from the pump. But we don't get any action. So unfortunately, I think that pump has to come out. So I'm gonna take it out. I might take it apart for a second, see if it's anything we can fix. But if not, I think I'm gonna need a new pump, unfortunately. And just so you guys don't think I'm crazy, there's the in arrow, there's the out arrow, and I just set up this little test thing here, and nothing. Doesn't pull hardly anything. All right, so this comes off the motor, which obviously you guys could hear the motor spinning. The bearing looks good, which you can see kind of does that sort of action. And I gotta get this rubber thing off, see what's going on underneath. Man, so this spaceship looking thing, I mean, when you spin this, none of these turn or do anything. So
I am not too sure yet. I'm going to take out these 3 Phillips screws, see what's underneath. Nothing looks broken yet. Maybe something's just stuck. So there's the inside of this thing. So this thing's kind of just off center, and I guess jiggles these little pegs a little bit, and that's what causes a pumping action. But I don't see any issues. All seals look decent. It's a little weird, isn't it? You can see there's some blue in here, so somebody is running washer fluid or something, but still no obvious reasons as to why it wouldn't or shouldn't or couldn't work. I'm still investigating, guys. I'll let you know when I find out. I'm gonna try to put this thing back together again.
Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but I had to buy an AEM standalone controller for it originally, which is all I thought I really needed. I thought I wasn't gonna use the tank out of the road kit. I would just use the pump. I would use the nozzles that are for the Viper, like the certain cc or volume of spray. And I thought I would just use a controller, but it's kind of turning out that I maybe should have just bought an AEM kit and then backwards engineered it, because it looked like I'm pretty much gonna have a whole AEM kit. But I'll be able to recoup a bunch of money off of selling the parts that I'm not using. So it's always a different way to look at things, you guys. So in the end, it'll work out, but I need that pump.
Also had to get these little compression sleeves. I was missing it for these nozzles, so I needed the little sleeves so that it seals on our tubing.
All right, guys, so after a bit of a mission, we've got the AEM version 2 methanol kit, and fortunately or unfortunately, we're just gonna be using the pump since we pretty much have everything else in there. You guys already know we have the controller, which we installed. The only benefit and why I got this kit, like I said, is since it has that tank. I might at some point try to fit this tank into that other side, because we have a ton of room over here, so I might try to squeeze it in there if that tank that we designed over here, if this ends up running out really fast. So let's go ahead, get that pump in there. It's not much to see. I'm just gonna wire it up, slam it in there. Let's go. So here are the 2 side by side. So this one is definitely, I would say, I don't know, looks bigger to me, right? Definitely heavier and got a bigger motor on it. But one nice thing is that they did keep the footprint the same. So our mounting brackets are exact same holes, so we'll be able to throw that on nicely. Only difference, I guess, is that there's no 90s on this, which doesn't really make too much of a difference, honestly. I'll just have to make sure that we have long enough hose. If not, we can just swap out the hose, but I'll just double check that we can route our hose through there, but should not be an issue. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna throw those 2 spade clips on here so that we can just clip it right on, and we'll get her in. We've got the pump in, it's connected, everything's good. So now I put a little bit of water in here, and as you would anticipate, this should shoot up like a geyser. So let's go ahead and try that. So it's gonna take a second to prime, I'm sure, but let's see. Yeah, you can hear, oh, there she is. So our setup works, you guys. That's how she's supposed to be. Just like that. All right, so pretty much the only thing remaining is to install your 2 nozzles, and I'm actually going to wait before I do that. But you guys, you can go ahead and do this, and I'm gonna wrap this video up here. But you're just gonna drill a hole into your, if you have the rubber coupling or you have the actual hard pipe, but you're gonna put it in a place that's, in my opinion, I'm gonna put it somewhere inconspicuous. So I'm gonna try to put it probably on the bottom here, but I kind of have to wait, or I want to wait until I get the actual supercharger on here and see what other kinds of stuff is running around here, because obviously I'm gonna have a big snout out here for the supercharger and the belt and all that stuff. So I could put them in right now, but I'm not even going to use this right now, so I'd rather wait before I actually drill those holes so I can run my lines adequately. So you can see my lines coming up to here, and all I'm going to do is just put a T here. One's going to go to one, the other one's going to go to the other, and connect our nozzles. So you guys can probably use all sorts of different nozzles. Here's the AEM nozzle, for example. There's just lots of different ones that you can use. A T, which I'm probably going to get a nicer one than this white one. I'm going to get the black one since everything else matches, and install our 2 nozzles. And I had to go get these little compression sleeves that go into here on this style nozzle. So that's gonna be pretty much it, you guys. She's up, she's working. I'll keep you guys posted how it works once we get into the tuning and supercharged, which is why we're installing this whole thing. So if you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button so you're notified of all the latest videos, because we're gonna have an install for the supercharger coming up and lots more to come. So thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.